Brook versus Emu! Brook versus Emu! Brook versus Emu! Oh, I'm sorry. Spoiler warning. Spoiler alert. Oh man, I've almost forgot. Spoiler warning for anybody that hasn't read chapter 1173. Spoiler alert for anybody that is maybe an anime-only watcher of One Piece. Hasn't caught up to the manga, haven't gotten to Elbaf yet. Spoiler warning. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's get back to it. Brook versus Emu! Brook versus Emu! Oh, you are dead, Emu! There is no way! I don't care if you have Bill Cipher's magic book and the magic homeless staff from that microtransaction game that everybody loves. I don't care! You could have everything! You could have all 7 Dragon Balls. You could have every Bankai in Bleach. You know what? I'm going to give Emu every single advantage in this fight because I am so confident that Brook could beat Emu that we just want to make it 100% sure. We can give Emu every devil fruit in the encyclopedia, every advantage, all the hockey. It don't matter. You know why? Because you don't know Brook. I know Brook. Alas, poor Brook. I knew him, Zoro. A man of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He always asked if he could see the panties. he was truly a great skeleton. All right, holy crap. Okay, so, a lot of people have pointed this out. Brook was like the first Straw Hat to fight against an emperor. Like, straight up, Brook charged right there to fight against Big Mom. And you know what? Actually held his ground. You got to remember, Brook was not aiming to kill Big Mom in that fight. Now, if he was trying to, that would have been a completely different battle right there. Brook was just trying to get his hands on the poneglyphs, which he did accomplish, by the way. He was able to go up. You really step back for a moment and look at that fight, all right? Look at this nonsense. Brook is squaring off against an Emperor of the Sea, Big Mom, who's strong enough in her own right, but you also have her 3 homies, Napoleon, Prometheus, and Zeus. So it's literally 4 versus 1, okay? And Brook managed to not die, so right there, let's just, give that some credit to Brook. And then also the fact he was able to sneak past Big Mom, get the poneglyph, and sneak it out, and steal one of the Emperor's, most cherished belongings, okay? So, yeah, that was a pretty impressive feat. And now here, in chapter 1173 at Elbaf, the last chapter, we have Brook going up to Emu, Gunko Emu. Gunko currently possessed by Emu and begins speaking to them. Now, granted, remember, Brook does not know about Emu and the possession and all that crap, right? All that Brook knows is that there is this blue-haired woman that has the ability to manipulate arrows that tied them all up, and she looks very, very similar to a person in Brook's own past, and that past is touched upon a little bit in the last chapter, where Brook refers to her as Princess Shuri. All right, and refers to her as someone that is a patricidal princess, a father-killing princess. All right, and Brook, is going this whole thing of just like, well, wait a minute, you can't be her because she would be like almost 80 years old by now, but, you look exactly like her, you have the same hair as her, and the heterochromia, the 2 different colored, irises, and so you just look and you love my music, so Brook is like, you seem almost exactly like her. So Brook is sort of trying to rationalize it, like, you must be like her daughter or granddaughter or like of her blood or something like that. Like, you have to be related to her, right? And you think this is going somewhere. You think it's like Brook being like, oh, Princess Shuri, it's been so long since I've seen you. This is a relic from Brook's life from before he died, before he even joined the Rumbar crew, back when he was living in the West Blue as the leader of that battle convoy, right? Like, you think, wow, we're learning some deep lore with Brook's backstory that we've really never touched upon before. And then Brook kind of flips the switch and is just like, I hate you. I never wanted to see your face again. How dare you? Why are you here now? Right? And then it's revealed that, like, oh, wait a minute, Brook actually hates this person, right? This is not a reunion of like, oh, it's been so long, these bones have died and dried out from 50 years on a ship of loneliness with my whole crew's corpses, but now I get to see someone from, my old days, and I'm relieved, I get to see an old friend I haven't seen in a while. No, Brook is actually really, mad here and wants to have this whole conversation about, like, who the hell you even are. Now, this conversation is being taken in a very different way from Gunko, because Gunko is actually hearing Brook's voice and is managing to resist Imu's possession. Imu directly says, like, "Ah, art thou returning to your memories, Gunko? Art thou remembering?" And Gunko is like, like she's trying to force back Imu, but also remembering things at the same time, which may imply that, like, Imu has the ability to, like, remove memories. Maybe that makes it easier to possess or something. But just like we learned in Egghead, this was kind of like a sub-thread, a little bit of a theme in One Piece that we learned a lot about in Egghead, was that no matter what, you can never, like, remove, like, the innate being of who you are. We saw that with the mechanical sharks and the sea beasts. Like Lilith mentioned, like, no matter how many times we do cybernetic modifications on these animals and turn them into robots or whatever, they still, like, disobey, or they'll still, go to their, like, primal instincts and stuff like that. And so you also see that with Kuma a little bit, where even though Kuma is essentially brain dead right now, he still has that drive to go and save his daughter, to go fly all the way to Egghead to punch Saturn and save Bonnie, all right? And even afterwards, Kuma, once again, he's a vegetable essentially, he's still smiling, and he's still like, "Oh, this is nice. I'm finally getting to be, spending time with my daughter and reunited with her and everything like that, and I was able to save her life and all that stuff," right? And so I feel like this comes from the soul. If we're going with the idea of, like, mind, body, and soul, we can have, like, Vegapunk doing, like, brain surgery, messing with your mind and things like that, but your soul is your soul, okay? And Brook is the master of soul. He's the soul king, after all, right? So I like to think that's kind of where it's at. And so Gunko, even if Imu had some ability to, like, wipe her memory, her physical brain of, like, what happened, her soul still remembers, okay? And so that's kind of the thing that's fighting back right now. So Gunko is able to regain control for a very brief moment, only a couple of seconds. She uses that to tell Brook to run away. "You need to leave. You cannot be here right now." And she loosens the arrows that were binding Brook, as well as the other Straw Hats, so they all get freed. And so Brook is about to, he's not about to run away, though. He gets freed. Part of his leg is still bound, which is good. I mean, you need a handicap on Brook in this fight, because otherwise it's just going to be a one-sided beatdown, right? So anyway, his leg is still bound. But even if his leg was not bound, Brook was still shouting of just like, "Oh, I came here to settle this. I came here to, talk to you about what's going on. Who even are you right now?" So Brook is standing. He's not leaving. All right, he's dedicated into whatever this is right now, okay? What's really crazy to me about this whole thing, really, in context, is, like I said, Brook was not sure that it was actually Princess Shuri, because it's been like 80 years, right? She should be a really old woman, if not dead right now. So Brook is like, "Well, maybe you're just like a relative of her." Even if Princess Shuri is dead, like, she's not, she's Gunko, but, like, let's say she was dead and this was just a relative, Brook was still like, hey, you're a relative of Princess Shuri? Well, I got something to say to you. Like, so this hatred is like visceral almost, right? Like, it's there for Brook. He mentions that the man he owed everything to in this world, his benefactor, the man he looked up to, was killed by Gunko, right? And there's still so many pieces of this puzzle that we do not have. But we know a little bit. We've seen the flashbacks before where Gunko was trying to remember the first time, right before she was possessed by Imu. And honestly, that timing, right around the time Gunko was beginning to remember who she was, and then at that exact moment Imu takes over, it's almost like that was like a reflexive thing. Like, Imu was at the Holy Land, and then, like, wait a minute, Gunko's about to remember who she is. Oh, hell no! And then, like, and just grabs and possesses her, and just like, okay. So, like, there's like a connection here between Imu and Gunko that goes a little bit deeper than just, like, the regular God's Knights or even the Gorosei. Probably has something to do with her having blue hair. Vivi has blue hair. Lily had blue hair. So it was like, Imu has a type and is just like, "Oh yes, Gunko, you will be my servant and then my personal God's Knight," or some shit, right? Okay. I don't know. I would say that Imu is only able to possess people that have blue hair, but was also able to possess Saturn. Although, then again, Saturn might have had blue hair back when he was a younger man. You never know, right? He had gray hair because he was an old guy, but who knows? Maybe Saturn, maybe that's the trick. I've seen a lot of theories around that, like the limitations of Imu's possession. There's one theory that Imu can only possess people while they're on their home island, or can only, change Domi Reversi people on their home island. And then this possession is a little different. Like, there's Domi Reversi, there's the Covenants, and then there's the Possession. Those are three, like, very similar powers that allow Imu to control and manipulate people, but each of those have very different setup and circumstances. The Covenant requires the seal and gives people, like, regeneration. Domi Reversi doesn't seem to require the seal, and it doesn't give you regeneration. And then the Possession is, we still don't know the rules on that, but I would assume it would be somebody that has to have at least the Covenant in order for Imu to possess them. And we've only seen Imu possess Gunko and Saturn up until now. So, we don't know the rest of the rules on that. We're learning a lot about Imu in this arc. But anyway. So, Imu possesses Gunko there, and, she's freed for a moment, but then Imu takes control, and then immediately just charges at Brook, and is like, "Who art thou to Gunko?" And so that implies some interesting stuff. That implies that Imu, despite being able to possess Gunko, does not have access to her memories, right? Imu does not know about Brook. Imu does not know about the past of Gunko. Imu is like, "Who are you to Gunko? Who are you?" Right? Imu has no idea. Okay, so Imu takes out, their pitchfork and charges and attacks Brook. Brook is freed, so he takes out his Soul Solid, his trusty icy sword from the underworld, and the shield. Remember, it's just like a costume shield that Gerd made. Now, I'm sure Gerd is really skilled at making, outfits and things, just as Road is, I guess. And so I'm sure Gerd might have used some sturdy material, but it really basically is just like costume stuff that she made for humans to wear, okay? And so Brook has the shield, though. Maybe he'll armament hockey that up or charge up the shield with his soul power or something, right? Like, I don't know. So Brook has a sword, and he has a shield, and he has a guitar. That guitar is probably also going to come in useful. All right. So I hope we don't skip away from this. I hope this is not a one-off scene thing where we cut back and we see Brook on the ground with a cracked skull of just like, "Oh, I couldn't do it." And then Imu's like lording over Brook like, "I don't know who you are, but you're going to die again," and then goes down to attack, and then Sanji shows up at the last minute and, like, blocks the attack, or, well, I guess that would be tricky for Sanji, because Gunko is a woman currently possessed by Imu. Granted, we do not know Imu's gender, but Gunko is the one that would be physically fighting right now. So I could see Sanji showing up and, like, blocking the attack from the pitchfork in the same way that Sanji can, like, block attacks from Big Mom and stuff. But Sanji obviously wouldn't be able to fight Gunko. So, I don't know, Zoro shows up, or that's when Luffy shows up, or somebody else. But I don't want that to be just a cutaway, right? I want that to be an actual fight, right? Like, I want this to be like, okay, is Brook gonna actually win this? Maybe, I don't know. Like, it really depends on Brook's ability to manipulate the power of a soul, right? Like, okay, because we've seen that with the chess soldiers back at Whole Cake Island, right? Where they were animated chess pieces with the souls of other people with the Soul no Mi. That's Big Mom's ability, right? And by just a single strum of his guitar, Brook was able to knock out all of these chess soldiers and disrupt their souls. Well, if the thing that Gunko is using to remember her previous life right now is her soul, and Brook can resonate with that, then we could do something. We could do some Soul Eater, soul resonance shit right now, okay? And so Brook, like, strums his guitar, like, "You loved my music, Princess Shuri. This was your favorite song." And then he plays the song, and then Gunko is like, "Ah!" And then Imu's, like, spirit is, like, exorcised from Gunko or something. Like, the spirit of Imu is, like, knocked out. And it's like, ah, damn it. Maybe Imu could go and possess somebody else, like one of the God's Knights, like Imu possesses Summers or something, especially since he failed big time in the last chapter, and the ship was destroyed. So maybe Imu goes and possesses Summers instead. So, it depends on if that's going to happen, and then Gunko can get back to her senses, and obviously when she's back to the way she is, she's not going to want to fight Brook. Brook might still want to fight her, but she's going to be like, "No, Brook, you don't understand," because from what we've seen in the brief flashback we have gotten, is that Gunko back in the day was crying, profusely, and just like, "Father, no!" So it seemed like she didn't kill her father in, like, cold blood. Like, I don't know what Brook witnessed. I don't know what Brook saw exactly. All I can say is Brook hates Princess Shuri so much and is so sure that she killed his benefactor in cold blood in the most brutal way imaginable. Brook is held on to this hate for like, 80, 70 years, something like that. Even while he was on the ship, even after he had died and was on the ship, you'd think, being on a ship for 50 years, I want you to picture this, 50 years of just solitude, of just crushing loneliness with nothing but like the corpses of your crew to keep you company. Brook is there sipping an empty cup of tea, and he's just like, this gets me to reflect on my life. My time traveling with the Rumbar crew, Laboon, being in the West Blue in that kingdom, and Princess Shuri killing the king! I'll never forgive her! Like that. He held on to that. He held on to that. Not only did he hold on to that, he held on to that to the point where it's like, even if you're a relative of her, even if you're related, I still, like, hate to see your face again. Like, how dare you, right? So I'm almost like, from Brook's perspective, he must have witnessed, like, I don't know, like, nothing short of, like, Gunko stabbing the king and just, like, laughing over his corpse. Like, that's the level of, like, evil that Brook is, like, throwing on Gunko here. Like, I never wanted to see your face again, Princess Shuri. That time that you stabbed the king 37 times and laughed as he bled out in front of you. Your own father! It's like maybe that level, but, like, from what we've seen in Gunko's flashback, she was, like, crying and stuff. So I don't know how Oda's going to write this in, but he's got to make it, like, convincing that Brook would hold on to a grudge for, like, this long, okay? So, I mean, it's clearly a misunderstanding, but, like, if it's just a misunderstanding of the level of, like, hey, Brook, did you hear Princess Shuri killed the king? What? I hate her forever. Like, that would be, like... That would be a little weird if Brook heard about this, like, from secondhand or something like that. Like, Brook would have had to have been there. Now, it might have involved, like, Imu possessing Gunko back then, and then having her kill her father, and then go to the Holy Land. That's another thing, too, because she's a part of the Manmayer family. She was, mentioned in the Tankobon. It was corrected that she was a saint of the Manmayer family. However, if Brook knew her and she was the princess of his benefactor and she killed the king, that implies, therefore, doing some deductive reasoning here, or is it inductive reasoning? I always confuse those two. That Brook's benefactor was, in fact, the king, most likely of that land in the West Blue, right? So if Princess Shuri was the princess of this kingdom, but then she eventually ends up in the Manmayer family, that seems like something, and Imu's involved here, so that really does seem like maybe Imu wanted Gunko to be in Marijois, and so possessed her, had her kill her father, and then transferred her to Marijois under the Manmayer family, and then Gunko became, like, the personal, like, handmaiden, servant, slave of Imu. We see that in Rox's flashback, eventually becomes an introductory member into the Gods Knights, the Knights Steel, and then becomes a proper Gods Knight in her own right, okay? Also, I'm imagining at some point her name changed, because Gunko literally just means army child, and it doesn't sound like a name that you would give, like, a princess, right? We know her name is Princess Shuri, so that makes sense there. Like, it was more of a code name or something like that, or like, Imu wipes her brain and then gives her the name Gunko or something, so you do not remember, who you really were or something like that. Some, like, spirited away yokai magic bullshit. Or you're like, I'm stealing your name now, Chihiro. It's something like that, right? Okay, so this is also a really good setup here on now Imu directly doing something to mess with a Straw Hat. Like, if Brook's backstory directly ties into Princess Shuri and Imu, possessed her, then now Brook, after he learns all of this, is going to take all of that hatred that he has built up for Princess Shuri over, like, 70 plus years, and is going to now throw that all on Imu. It's all Imu's fault, right? It's very much like in the flashback at Egghead when, Bonnie wanted to kill Vegapunk because she thought Vegapunk was responsible for everything that happened to her father. And then she enters the memory bubble and learns everything about Kuma's past and learns, no, it was actually this dipshit named Saturn. He was the one that was actually doing all the horrible things. Your dad was just trying to help you. Vegapunk was just trying to help you. And Vegapunk, in fact, tried multiple times to, like, make it like, oh, I don't have to wipe his whole soul memory. We could just do this instead, right? But Saturn just wouldn't have it, right? And so then Bonnie took all of that anger that she had for Vegapunk and threw it right at Saturn, okay? So we're going to have something there too. And it also works to just tie this all into the Straw Hats. I'm not saying every single Straw Hat needs to be connected to Imu in some way. Like, Imu was responsible for the disease that killed Usopp's mother. Imu actually possessed Arlong in that moment when he shot Bellemere. Imu possessed Judge, and that's why Sanji had such a messed up childhood. Imu was actually, well, okay, Imu and the Ohara thing, that one you could actually maybe, you could throw some blame on Imu for the Ohara thing. It was the Gorosei that actually ordered everything, but like, at the end of the day, who do the Gorosei take orders from? Imu. So Robin's backstory, you could definitely have that. Imu was the one driving the sea train that brought Tom away. Oh my god, at the end of the One Piece story, when we're learning everything about Imu, we just go back and we see the flashback, like Imu was there. It's like Tsukishima from Bleach. Imu is like there, driving the train, like every single horrible thing that's ever happened to the Straw Hats, it was all Imu this entire time. Right? Not just indirectly, they were actually there. Okay? So, anyway, yeah, so we're going to have that moment where Brook's going to figure out what's happening. If Brook can manage to resonate with Gunko's soul. Oh, we don't even have to do the thing where like Imu is exorcised or something. We could literally do like a memory world, like how like in Naruto when two characters like with like their chakra meets and they can like go in the like when Naruto met the fourth Hokage, like that kind of scene right there. We could do a scene like that in One Piece. I think it would make sense because you resonate things with your music, right? That's how you understand somebody's emotions with music. Brook strums his guitar, and then the next thing you know, him and Gunko are inside of like a song magical memory, inner world or whatever, and then Brook is there. Maybe Brook is flesh and bone again, not just bone but flesh and bone. He's back to looking the way he did when Gunko knew him, and maybe Gunko looks the way that she did when they knew each other, right? Like before all this horrible stuff happened to them, before Brook died and before Gunko got possessed and everything. And so there's a moment there where they're back in the West Blue or something, and then Brook is there singing a song like, okay, I'm not going to be able to hold this connection for long, but like, what happened? And then maybe Gunko will explain what Princess Shuri explains, like, Brook, you don't understand. Like, this is what happened all those years ago. I was possessed by Imu, who, by the way, is this evil shadow lord of the entire world, right? Maybe Princess Shuri knows a little bit more about Imu, but not like their true nature or anything like that. And so this is what happened, and I didn't want to kill my father, and my mind went blank, and I came out of it, and I was holding a dagger, and my dad was in front of me covered in blood, and father, no, and then that's maybe when Brook walked in at the worst possible time, right? And so Gunko's there holding a dagger, crying, and maybe like, it's like, how dare you? You know what I mean? And then like that's where it all started from there. Brook could have been like the Royal Guard or like the King's Guard or something like that, right? And so in this memory world, song world dimension, they figure everything out, and they like resonate. And so then they're returned to the real world where Brook is a skeleton and Gunko is still possessed. And then it's like Brook is like, now I know what I must do. I know where I must point my sword, right? But hey, it's very, very interesting, especially since we don't know about Imu's, like, does Imu even really have a physical body? They have the ability to transform really big, into like that kaiju form we saw at Marijois. So yeah, there is like a physical form there, but like, Imu is just like, maybe has like their actual body has decayed so much that it's just like that black aura that surrounds them at that point, and that is their body. Like, can they physically interact with the world? Yes, but are they more like a soul tethering themselves to the mortal plane? Have they died long ago? So if nothing else, Brook's abilities might actually be more effective. From what we've seen up until now, you cannot defeat Imu with physical force. Oda made that abundantly clear at God Valley, with some of the strongest heavy hitters in the entire world with Conqueror's Haki hitting Imu, and Imu just reformed, right? So honestly, you might bring up, if somebody's bringing up that like, oh man, Brook is the one that fights against Imu. Brook has no shot. He's not even close to being one of the strongest Straw Hats. He's not in the monster trio or the monster quartet now that Jinbei is there. Jinbei shows up at the last minute. We get a Jinbei-Brook team up, It's just like, oh no, Brook's about to die, and then Jinbei shows up and just boom! Just like, all right, Brook, let's go. Let's fight. Right, what's going on? Right. Okay, so honestly, Jinbei versus Imu, that's not going to work. Jinbei can punch Imu all he wants. That's not just going to reform. Zoro's slashes, Sanji's kicks, Luffy being the sun god, has good odds of doing some stuff there. But, like, honestly, out of all the other Straw Hats, there's only 3 of them that I can really think of that might be actually able to do some, like, non-traditional damage to Imu that might actually have a lasting effect. Luffy using the sun god powers, Gear 5th, obviously could probably do something. Also, we know Imu is terrified of Joy Boy's haki, and Luffy is the not the reincarnation of Joy Boy, but like the inherited will of Joy Boy, so you can see that. Then you have Brook, whose powers don't, he can stab you and freeze you and stuff like that, but his powers are song and soul manipulation, so that could do something, right? Not with your physical body, but with your soul. And then also Usopp. Usopp using the Usopp spell. It might work on Imu. Hey, we gotta kind of throw everything we have in the kitchen sink at Imu, right? Like, Usopp, try the Usopp spell. Maybe it'll work, right? Usopp's just like, hey, Lord Imu, you got a bunch of sewing needles stuck under your nails, and the sound of styrofoam, screeching against one another, and Emu's like, oh god, no, no. It's just like, it's too much. And then Imu is like kicked out of Gunko that way, and then retreats back to Marijois. The 2 things Imu is terrified of, the sound of styrofoam and Joy Boy's haki. Okay, so, like, yeah, we can do something like that. That's more of a joke, but honestly, Usopp can try. Maybe it'll work. Who knows? But yeah, straight up fight between Brook and Imu. Let's go. Let's see what the effects the soul have. Honestly, if Brook uses the soul power and that removes the possession, I'd be okay with that. I'd be all right with that being a twist, and Brook actually revealing that kind of is his awakening at the same time. That would also be really cool, because you never know how devil fruits will interact with one another, and Emu's being is very strange, okay? So anyway, that's the video. Hope you all enjoyed. Brook, good luck to you. There's no break this week, and I hope we just follow up with that immediately. There's a lot of other moving parts right now on the Domi Reversi table, but, like, can we just keep up with this, because this is so cool. All right, let's see what we got. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching 101 signing out. Later.